Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a topic that, let's be honest, gives a lot of us headaches: modern dating. We're going to unpack a really fascinating paradigm shift by looking at how ancient biblical texts map onto and often completely clash with our modern dating culture. It's a deep dive into how thousands of years old wisdom addresses human desires that, frankly, haven't changed one bit.
Okay, so right off the bat, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. The Bible knows absolutely nothing about modern dating. I mean, the ancient world obviously didn't have dating apps, swiping fatigue, talking stages, or Wi-Fi to ghost someone. There literally wasn't even a concept of a long-term recreational relationship detached from family life. And yet, as you'll see, the source material speaks directly to the human heart underneath all of these modern behaviors.
So, let's get right into Section 1, Purpose over Recreation, looking at the biblical foundation. When we look at our source material, we see that the first huge divergence is the actual foundational purpose of a relationship. In the book of Genesis, companionship isn't presented as some casual, weekend recreational activity. Instead, it follows a very deliberate step-by-step pattern. First, there's recognition. Then, a relationship forms. That relationship moves into a formal covenant, and only then does it culminate in a physical and spiritual union.
And it's wild when you think about it, because modern culture pretty much completely reverses this ancient pattern into a tangled mess. Today, we usually start with physical attraction, quickly rush into emotional attachment, proceed to sexual intimacy, and then, maybe, eventually if we feel like it, try to figure out commitment later. But biblically, intimacy was designed to grow safely inside a covenant, not to replace it.
That brings us to Section 2, Character over Chemistry. Here we're comparing an inward versus outward focus.
Think about how we evaluate a potential partner today. The modern checklist relies heavily on outward traits. It's usually all about chemistry, excitement, charisma, and physical attraction. We look for this high emotional intensity, or we obsess over whether we have the exact same hobbies and music tastes, desperately hoping that initial spark is going to be enough to sustain the connection.
On the flip side, the biblical texts prioritize inward character, like overwhelmingly so. They look for an anchor of traits like integrity, humility, self-control, and faithfulness. Actually, the text actively warns that a person can be incredibly charming, super funny, and really attractive, but still be completely spiritually dangerous to your life if they lack character.
Proverbs captures this ancient wisdom so perfectly. It says, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain." It's just a profound reminder that while outward attraction might be the initial spark that starts a relationship, it is the inward character that actually determines if the house stays standing when the inevitable storms of life hit.
Which leads us to spiritual unity. The source text uses this great agricultural metaphor, being yoked. A yoke joins two animals so they can pull together in the exact same direction. If they don't, they literally just walk in circles, exhausting themselves. So the warning against being unequally yoked means two people must be moving in the same spiritual trajectory. Why? Because the people closest to you will absolutely shape your behavior and ultimately your destiny.
This ancient framework becomes even more profound in Section 3, Rethinking Love and Sexuality. We're looking at covenantal versus casual.
Our culture defines love almost exclusively as an intense feeling. The butterflies, the romantic obsession. But looking at 1 Corinthians, biblical love is totally reframed. It's patient, it's kind, it's sacrificial. It is fundamentally covenantal and volitional. What that means is it's an active, enduring choice you make designed to survive long after that initial honeymoon excitement fades away.
And when you put the two perspectives on sexuality side by side, you see a massive divergence. Modern culture frequently treats intimacy as physical recreation, maybe stress relief, or just a way to test compatibility. Scripture, however, views it as a deeply spiritual, union-making act. It warns against intimacy outside of a covenant. Not to kill your joy, but to protect you from the deep wounds of breaking a bond that was meant to be permanent.
Because intimacy carries such profound weight, it brings us to Section 4, Wisdom, Boundaries, and Counsel, Navigating Human Vulnerability.
Today, we kind of just rely on ourselves, right? We tell ourselves, oh, we're strong enough, basically trying to walk a tightrope over temptation. The biblical approach advocates for a profound realism about human vulnerability. Instead of constantly asking how far is too far or just relying on sheer willpower, biblical wisdom says to build a fence, avoid unnecessary temptation entirely by setting firm, healthy boundaries.
And those boundaries aren't just for the couple alone. Modern relationships are often super private and isolated. But Proverbs tells us, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. The source warns that dangerous relationships actually thrive in secrecy.
A healthy relationship, biblically speaking, is one that openly welcomes the observation and the honest questions of friends, family, and a wise community. Plus, boundaries aren't only physical. The ancient text warns heavily against something called emotional idolatry. This is what happens when you start looking to a romantic partner for your ultimate worth, your core identity, or to magically save you from loneliness. When a relationship shifts from healthy companionship to the functional worship of another person, the foundation cracks, and it becomes really spiritually dangerous.
So where does this entire biblical framework ultimately lead? Let's check out Section 5, Covenant, Marriage, and Singleness. The ultimate trajectory.
According to the biblical texts, the end goal of romantic pursuit is a covenant union, marriage. The text literally doesn't have a category for endless relational consumption. It totally rejects the modern habit of serial emotional entanglements or treating human beings as disposable experiences. Romance detached from a covenant purpose? It's viewed as a fragile and spiritually unstable endeavor.
But there's a deeply crucial balancing truth here. While marriage is highly honored as a sacred covenant, singleness is equally honored. The texts, especially Paul's writings, celebrate singleness as a state of whole devotion to God, not a state of inferiority, or like you're just waiting around for real life to start. Human worth and completeness come from God, not from possessing a romantic partner.
To wrap up our explainer today, let's move to Section 6, asking the right questions for some personal reflection. The source material eschews those modern step-by-step dating formulas. Instead, it offers us these profound, reflective questions to cut through the confusion. Rather than asking how to keep someone interested or how to maximize your physical attraction, the biblical paradigm flips the mirror. Are you developing the inward character required to actually sustain a faithful covenant?
It also challenges you to deeply examine the trajectory of your partnership. It asks a really simple but difficult question. Is this relationship pulling both of you closer to a spiritually grounded life, or is it distracting you and pulling you away?
And finally, it forces a stark, honest look at the foundation itself. Ask yourself, would this relationship still be healthy if the excitement totally faded? Is the connection built on deep, enduring truth and shared character, or is it just propped up by fleeting emotional intoxication? Because that will inevitably collapse under the weight of real-world hardship.
Ultimately, these biblical principles aren't meant to destroy romance, joy, or passion. They exist to place those incredibly powerful forces inside the protective walls of wisdom, truth, and covenant. So, considering everything we've looked at today, by anchoring desire in wisdom rather than just fleeting emotion, how might applying these ancient principles completely transform your understanding of what it truly means to love and be loved?